Hi, everyone. Just trying to get situated here. I'm Katie. I'm here to do the puppy pinatas with you guys today. So today's video is going to be actually kind of like a tutorial on how to actually make the pinatas. Just so you are aware, it is a multi-day activity. So the first day is actually making it. Then you'll need to basically let it set overnight. I would actually recommend just leaving it to set for a couple of nights. And then if you want to decorate it, you can decorate it, and then it's ready for the activity itself. So today I'm going to make a piñata with you guys. So hopefully people will start logging on and have their equipment ready. So the ultimate goal of this is just kind of, you're basically creating a toy for your dog. So it's going to engage their sense of problem solving as well as scent. And it's a food enrichment type activity because we will be putting food in the piñata for them to try to get out. It also kind of hones in on some natural instincts as far as like foraging, but also if you have a dog that likes to shred things, this is a perfect activity for them. So please get your kids involved if you have kids. It's a really messy activity, so make sure that you're prepared to kind of get a little dirty. The other thing about this activity is if you make a piñata and your dog is not interested in it, or if there's multiple of you making the piñata today and you don't have a need for as many, please know that the shelter always could use them. We actually had an activity scheduled for this Tuesday involving piñatas, and unfortunately the shelter is not open. So we won't be doing that activity in the shelter, but hopefully you'll be doing it in the home for Cinco de Mayo. So the items that you will need. So I know I posted a photo, but essentially you'll need a balloon, you'll need a newspaper, you'll need flour, you'll need scissors because we're going to cut up the paper into strips. You'll need, I don't think I have an example, you'll need some water, you'll need a bowl, and then either something to mix it with, or you can use a paintbrush or a pastry brush if you want, but you'll notice I actually just use my hands. I find it easier to do it that way, but you'll need all of these. And then obviously whatever surface that you're going to be using is going to get messy. So I would recommend having some kind of either tablecloth that can be washed. I'm actually using a beach towel, and you can also use your newspaper to kind of spread it out just so that, you know, it's easy to clean up at the end. So while you're doing this activity, you can also engage your dog during the activity. So Bowie, we just went for a walk, so he's exhausted, so he probably will not be participating that much. But especially with balloons, dogs really kind of tend to get like really excited by the sound, and you can like make them make those like squeaky noises, and that's going to kind of capture their attention. I'm going to move the camera over as I'm trying to blow up the balloon, and we'll see if Bowie has any kind of reaction to it. He might not, because again, he's kind of tired right now. We sort of got lost in the park, so we walked a little extra. All right, please excuse my messy floor here. All right. No? You don't want to hear it now? Okay. He didn't like that. So we'll just go at his pace today. The first time I did it, he was really intrigued by it. Not so much right now. But go ahead and blow up your balloon. You can make it as big or as small as you want. Obviously, if you have a bigger dog, you may want to make it a little bigger. If you have a smaller dog, a little smaller works. All right. And then obviously tie off your balloon. I'm going to make mine a little smaller here. And I'm not not the best at tying balloons, so hopefully this works. All right, so we have our balloon made. So we're going to set this aside and we're going to make our mixture. This is animal safe. We actually got the recipe from one of the zoos. So there's really no rhyme or reason or any kind of measurement. So I can't say like a fourth a cup of this, a fourth a cup of that. It's just kind of when it looks like glue. So I'm just going to toss in some flour. And I will say that you usually need a little bit more than what your eye thinks you will need, just from my experience of making it. I actually made a test one before this, and halfway through it, I discovered I didn't have enough, so I had to like clean up and then make more. So I would recommend, if possible, just to make a little bit more than what you think that you might need, just as a precaution. So we have our flour in there. Now we're just going to simply add our water. And you don't want it too liquidy, but you want it to, again, kind of look like a thick paste. So we're just going to kind of mix that in. You don't want it to be doughy because we're not making bread. So just add a little bit of water as you go until you get the right consistency. Came back over. Probably came back and decided he's going to join us again. I think he thinks it's food for him. So hopefully you can see this, maybe not, but my consistency is still kind of not quite a paste mixture. So I'm going to add just a little bit more water, because what you will be doing is you will be taking strips of your paper and basically using the glue to glue it onto your balloon. So my consistency is pretty spot on. It's a little bit thicker than glue, but when I am stirring it, it's still kind of got like a little bit of a liquid consistency. So almost kind of like a liquid pancake batter, essentially. So I'm going to set that aside. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your paper and you're just going to cut it into strips. I found the easiest way, if you take one and just already have it folded over, if you just cut it into strips like that, and then kind of halfway unfold and then cut there, and you already have like 6 strips. So it's a super fast way for you to do that. So you just do that so that you have a good amount of paper strips. Depending on the size of your balloon, some of your strips you might want to have thinner. If you have a really big balloon, you might want it to be a little bit wider. And so we've got our strips made. And I actually made a whole bunch ahead of time. So there's a whole bunch. And I would say maybe take just a small handful, and this is like kind of the length of the paper, and actually cut it down the middle again so that they're even smaller pieces, because you'll need some of these smaller pieces to kind of cover like small holes or to kind of get close to what will be the opening of your piñata. So now that we have our strips, we have our mix, and we have our balloon, we're ready to actually start making the piñata. This is where it gets really messy. I actually am just going to use this little jar to like actually set the balloon on, just so that it's not sticking to my surface. This is something that is easily disposable, so I'm not very concerned about it. There's no rhyme or reason as far as how you actually do the piñata itself. You can kind of start on either end. What you do need to make sure though, and I would recommend, so where you blew up the balloon, make sure to leave a hole. I would say probably leave it no bigger than $50, because that will be where you eventually are putting food into when you are going to do the piñata activity. So you do need to make sure that you keep an opening. If it's easier for you to kind of know where that is, feel free to draw kind of a marker on it, just so that you remember not to cover that. When you start doing this, you want to do it in layers. So you'll do one layer. As soon as your balloon is basically covered, you'll start on the next layer and so forth. I believe on the last one I did about 3 layers on it. So this portion is kind of time consuming, but I'm going to rearrange this so you can kind of see my hands as I'm doing it. All right, so we have our bowl. And again, art is supposed to be fun. There's no wrong or right way to do this, so please don't stress out when you're doing it. So essentially what you can do is you can either take the paintbrush and paint this on there. I like to just get messy, so I just stick it right in there and do like a really thin layer on it and then just spread it across. Like I said, you're going to get really messy doing this activity. So make sure that you're not wearing anything super nice and that you don't have to be anywhere pretty quickly because, yeah, you're going to get messy. So when you do this, just make sure you have a thin layer. You don't want it to be too goopy. Like the glue is just basically to be holding it on there. So you don't need very much on it, I mean. So if you do this, basically what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that it's a thin layer and anything extra is basically falling back into the bowl. And then you just simply stick it on your balloon any way, shape, direction you want. And then you just simply smooth it out. Obviously your balloon is round, so it makes it a little more challenging. So just do the best that you can. As you get layers on here, you'll be filling in the holes, so don't worry if there's like gaps anywhere. And then you just repeat. It's a pretty simple concept. And I'm already looking at it and knowing I probably should have made more paste. And again, for each one, you just want to smooth it down as smooth as possible. If it's easier, you can kind of turn your object around. Again, you can make these strips go in all different directions. It does help to make sure that you're covering all parts and all surfaces, essentially, of your balloon. So I'm going to just do one this direction. Again, really no rhyme or reason. You just want to make sure that, again, you're doing layers. So I don't want to be putting another piece on top of another piece just yet. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to start talking about the painting piece of it. After all of this is dried, you've let it set at least overnight, if not longer. You do have the option, if you really wanted to decorate it, you can paint it. So as long as your paints are non-toxic, so I believe most children's finger paints are considered non-toxic, but you can also use like natural paints. So if you are concerned at all about your dog ingesting any kind of paint, you can do things like when you are naturally dyeing like Easter eggs, You can use those same kind of coloring. So, boiling beets to get kind of that purpley color, soaking or steaming broccoli to kind of get that green color. You can also mix different spices just with water. So like turmeric, a little bit of water in that will make like a yellow color. So it's kind of like doing watercolors on it. So there are safe ways that you can kind of decorate after you've created your piñata. The dogs don't really care if it's color coordinated and decorated, but I know, especially if you have kids, they probably will want to get into it and decorate more. I know that we had asked, for the shelter, we had asked the Girl Scouts if they would create piñatas for us, and I'm hoping that they still will when we kind of get back to normal, but I'm assuming that they probably will want to decorate their piñatas as well. So just know that there are options. All right, so I'm going to pick up my balloon. You'll see like I'm basically just kind of pushing it down on the corners, again, just to help kind of seal any potential holes that might be popping up. Again, you're going to end up having layers on here, so you'll be covering up additional holes later anyways. But it's a good thing just to kind of go through and smooth it out as much as possible. So don't forget about the bottom of your balloon either. So as soon as you hit most of your surface on top, you'll kind of flip your object around and you'll do the bottom side. And again, making sure that you leave space for that hole. That's the point of the fun of piñata, is getting the stuff that's in it out. So turn this balloon around so that you can see it. It's a little harder for me to see, to know where I need to put this. Again, we'll smooth it out. All right. You'll notice that I have like a really small section that's open right there. And so for that small section, that's where these little tiny pieces will come in handy, because I don't necessarily need to put a whole piece over that section for the first layer. I just need to kind of cover every hole. So we'll do that real quick. Right. Again, we'll smooth it down just a little bit. All right, so I still have the bottom, so I'm just going to simply flip it over. And we'll work a little bit on the bottom. And just so you guys know, when I'm doing this activity right now for demo, I'm just going to do the first layer. But again, you're going to want to do at least 2, if not 3 or more layers. I just don't want you guys to have to like be on the whole time as I'm doing like every single layer. So set that on top. The next one. And already I've been flinging this paste all over the place, so I'm really glad that I have a tablecloth or a table covering. So again, you could be using a paintbrush to either paint on here, or you can paint kind of like on your balloon itself and then cover it. I just find that this method for me just seems to work a little easier. And I'm going to use a small piece because I have like this little tiny opening that I just need to cover. Smooth it out. Okay. So you'll see that I'm getting close to where I need to have that hole. So in that case, I'm going to have to just be a little bit more mindful of where my pieces are going to be lying, just so that I don't make the hole so small that I can't put stuff in it. All right, so now that you'll notice like the opening is getting smaller. So now I'm going to start using some of my smaller pieces to kind of create that covering for where the hole is going to be so that I still have a little spot. And again, it's not going to be like a perfect hole, so don't worry if it's like not a circle. And you'll notice that I'm moving this around a lot, and that's just so that I can make sure that I'm covering every aspect. All right. So you can see that I have my first layer done. I have every area kind of covered for at least a layer. And then you'll notice that I have like a little opening where I can eventually put treats. So what I would start doing at this point is going ahead and starting to put on my second layer. So you don't need to make it dry in between. Just know that you can start putting second layers on at this point. The second layer is to kind of just, again, cover as much of the surface as you can, but it's making the wall thicker so that it's a little more challenging for the dog. When you get to the point of the second layer, you would still be layering it just like you just did the first layer. But in that circumstance, I tend to use the brush a little bit more, only in the sense of helping just kind of smooth out the edges a little bit more, because there's already glue on here, and so it helps to kind of just use the glue that's on there as well as the additional that we're putting on to kind of smooth things down. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to wash my hands real fast, and then I'm going to show you the next portion that you would be doing with the balloon. So give me 1 second. Okay, so we just did our layers on our balloon. And again, you're going to want to wait for it to dry overnight, or the one I did, I let it sit for multiple nights just because I'm over cautious like that. So the next portion that you're going to do, now that you have your dried one, we need to get rid of the balloon that's inside of it. So I have not done this part yet, so I'm a little nervous about this piece. But essentially, I'm going to just make a little cut to let the air out. So you'll see, I'm just going to push it a little bit. And it's kind of, it's a really strange feeling. It's kind of like it's a skin peeling, if that makes any sense. So I'm just slightly pulling on the balloon just so that it will come off of the wall of what I created. And you're going to want to hold it tight because if I let this go, it's going to go inside the balloon and then I'm going to have to try to dig it out. It's really stuck on there. And there's still air in the balloon, so there we go. All right, so I got my balloon out. So now you can see this has like a pretty big-ish hole in there. Since it was my first one, I probably would try to make it smaller just because I know Bowie's food will come out of that. But at this point, this is where you can start like painting it with the non-toxic paints if you wanted to. I'm not going to. You could either use it as it is with this one hole, or you can use your scissors or something else to kind of create like little holes within. That way, like the dog can try to get out the food from other angles, so it's not like it's just coming out one end. So like I just created a little hole here. And I might create one more here. Depends on how challenging you want it. If your dog is not super toy motivated or food motivated, you might want to put more in there so that as they're like rolling the ball around, more food is coming out. And if you want one that's more challenging, obviously don't put as many holes in it. So let's see, we got the hole. We've got the top of the hole. I think that's good. So now that we have this piñata that has our main hole that we're going to put stuff in, I've created a few smaller holes for that food to kind of come out. Again, keep in mind how big your treats are. So if your treats are larger than that, you're going to want your hole bigger than that. So now we just need to grab our treats. And Bowie heard the word treats, and now he is all up on me. All right, so I'm just going to put in an assortment of different sizes. We'll just put some treats in there. I'm going to put some smaller ones in hopes that more of the small ones fall out. In the small hole. You could put their regular dog food in it as a dog treat. As an actual meal instead of just putting it in a bowl. And then I'm going to put one of these bigger ones in that Bowie loves. There's one in here. So we'll put one of those in there. And that one will be really hard for him to get out. Now, I have not done this activity with Bowie before, so we will see how he does with it. But I'm going to try to move stuff around because, again, my table is really messy now that I have stuff all over. Let's see if I can get this to work. Hi, Bowie. Come here. And then obviously just the goal is that they're moving it and trying to figure out how to get those treats out. Sorry, it's a little hard with my laptop versus my phone. So he got some, hopefully you guys can see it. He started getting some of the treats. I obviously don't want it in the corner, so hopefully he'll get to moving it. He just jackpotted. A bunch of it just came out of that big hole. And again, it's totally okay if what he's doing, he's actually like ripping it up. That is the goal of the piñata, to allow them to figure out how to get it, even if that means that they're using some of their natural instincts to actually tear it up. I mean, it's a piñata, and that's the goal. You break stuff up. So he just jackpotted. He got his whole lot out all in once. So that is Puppy Pinatas. I thank you guys all for being on and for watching. Please let us know how your dog does with it. If your piñata is not completely destroyed, feel free to kind of continue to use it and, just have fun with it. So have a great Saturday. Enjoy this beautiful weather, and we will see you soon. Bye.